Here's a warning to America's most successful. The IRS is watching you, and they may be coming for you. News today, the IRS expanding its audits of those making more than $500,000, and there was a stark increase for those making more than $1 million as well. Most heavily audited group, people who made more than $10 million. So, is this a Washington class warfare attack on the most wealthy and successful, or really an attack on the free market itself? Let's bring in our guest now. Here now is Mark Everson, former IRS commissioner, now vice chairman at Alliant Group, and Gary Shapiro, president and CEO of the Consumer Electronics Association. Mark, when you were at the IRS, they elevated the number of audits among the wealthy. Did they find a higher level of cheating among the wealthy? In other words, is this going to work at generating more revenue, which is clearly the goal?
Well, yes, it does work because, as Willie Sutton said, that's where the money is. If you are doing an audit of a taxpayer, a fireman, or a wage earner, it's simple document matching. The rich have more complex transactions, and it's very much worth the time of the service to look at the returns.
Yeah, but Gary, I guess your argument is going to be, hey, half the country not paying net federal income tax. Key to put the net in there as well. So this is the only place to look.
I think it's a good place to look, but what bothered me, the only area they went down in radically was people who have no adjusted gross income, which is about 50% of Americans. So we obviously know there's a huge cash economy out there. People aren't paying taxes. The IRS has a job, but the real issue is this whole approach that we got to go after the rich. We have to go after everyone in a sense. Everybody. People have to sacrifice. We got to get those Bush tax cuts. We got to cut spending. It's sacrifice and doing things for everyone to solve our problems.
And Mark Everson, are there enough people in those brackets that maybe have, legally or, intentionally or unintentionally, maybe not paid all they have? Is that going to make any kind of a dent anyway?
Well, it will. It does two things. One, that's where there is more money, and two, there's a perception of fairness. But let's not overstate what was released today, because if you go back to it, about 3/4 of the percentage increase actually came from the fact that there were fewer people earning $1 million dramatically. It's down about 1/3 from 2 years ago. So you're talking about coverage ratios there, and that's part of it. Service has been ramping up the efforts, but most of the increase is because the denominator is going down, if you will.
And Gary, last word to you. It's interesting you talked about the cash economy. A lot of people would use that and say, hey, drug dealers aren't going to pay taxes, but they're going to buy stuff, right? Should we have a VAT? Should we have a federal sales tax to capture that underground and cash economy?
Well, we have to do something different. I'm for the Bipartisan Deficit Commission. They said we have to look at raising taxes. We have to cut spending. We're going down a financial cliff, and it's time we need leadership. And unfortunately, the president hasn't provided it.
Mark Everson, Gary, thank you both very much. You guys have a great weekend.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, you think you're already swimming in government